Episode 2 here of Hammer Time. This is a sports betting podcast where you have three very annoying gentlemen try to give you bets that hardly ever win. And then we kind of just laugh about them the week after. Don't mind the MLB bets lately. That's why we're talking about college football today and throughout the rest of this entire podcast and episode. So we actually have all three of us today. Obviously, you met Jake last week. We have veteran Daddy Dill back in here. Today, not very much going on. We wanted to split it up with 2 episodes because we're not going to talk about the entire Power 4 in a single episode. And we don't want to give another 2-hour episode, as much as I would love to just sit here and ramble for 2.5 hours. But yeah, today, breaking down SEC and, ACC and Big Ten. 2 conferences, obviously. Loaded with talent. You have storylines. You have dark horses. You have powerhouses. Few traps. Who knows? We're going to go through conference championship winners, possible matchups. Pretty much just break down as much as we can and kind of give a preview into this coming season. So, without a further ado, I think we got Big Ten up first. Basically how it's going to go, I will basically just introduce and everything, and we're just kind of going to piggyback off of everything and then discuss and make fun of everybody's breakdown. And no matter how biased that is, even though SEC is next week, I cannot wait for next week already. Oh my God.
This is your guys' week to dog on me, is what it is.
I really can't wait. But yeah, if you want to, I don't know if you grab a notepad or if you're listening in your car, but hopefully your ears don't bleed. There's really a bunch of wild cards in this conference, which is why it is so fun and enjoyable. So I'm going to pass it to Jake. Jake's going to pretty much break it down and team by team, and then we're going to pretty much just piggyback, like I said, after teams and kind of see where we stand.
Righty. So we're going to start with the reigning national champions, Dylan's team here, the Ohio State Buckeyes.
Buckets.
Buckets. Yeah. Good start, guys. Good start. So
Aaron Craft.
We've got 2 new coordinator hires for this team. Not a super big fan of either one. You've got Brian Hartline is replacing Chip Kelly. Actually, Brian Hartline was the offensive coordinator 2 years ago when they were 34th in offense. Then Ryan Day replaced him with Chip Kelly. They win a national championship. We've decided to go back to Brian Hartline. And then Jim Knowles moves on to Penn State after last year and is replaced by Matt Patricia, who everyone knows as the New England Patriots defensive coordinator for a very long time. He is not with Bill Belichick anymore. So we'll see how that goes in Ohio this year. But moving on from offensive and defensive coordinator hires, they return 11 of their 22 starters on both sides of the ball. Their 2 best players return, Caleb Downs and Jeremiah Smith. However, they are losing their starting quarterback, Will Howard, 2 running backs, Travion Henderson and Quinshawn Judkins, and Emeka Egbuka. Most of those were drafted in the first 3 rounds. Almost their entire front 4 is also gone, most of them being picked in the NFL draft as well. However, I do like the secondary this year. Igbenoson's going to be a really good corner. You're going to be able to play half of a field with him being able to lock it down. And then you have Caleb Downs, who's going to play high and in the box. The wide receiver room is going to be electric. You've got Jeremiah Smith, you have Carnell Tate, and you have Brandon Ennis. All 5 stars, all very, very good. The only question I really have for this team is the lack of leadership there possibly could be with the replacing of all of the seniors, especially on the defensive side of the ball. But their strength of schedule, it's not bad. You have Texas in week 1, which is tough. At Washington in week 5 off of a bye. At Illinois and at Wisconsin, back-to-back. Then a bye. Then Penn State and at Michigan to end the year. I think the biggest question this year is just going to be, can they beat Michigan?
Big question.
As it is every year.
Yeah.
For 4 years running.
It's been long enough, that's for sure. Is that all you had on your stuff?
Yep, that's it.
Okay. I'll piggyback. So Yeah, I mean, just to start off, would you say they were 34th in offense 2 years ago with Brian Hartline?
Yep,
So, yeah, I mean, the one thing is Brian Hartline's been there for a while. He's single-handedly probably built, and the reason they've kept that wide receiver room as deep as they have,
absolutely.
produced a lot of good talent out of there. So that's one good positive thing I'll say about Brian Hartline. I hate to see Jim Knowles go. I mean, our defense has always been questionable. I mean, but I don't know. I mean, we're going to see, we're definitely going to see, they're going to be tested week one, which is not normally good. Ohio State normally starts slow. So, you got Arch Manning and the Texas Longhorns coming at you in the shoe week one. It's going to be crazy environment. And hopefully it's all for not all for nothing. Um, Extra notes I had, just like you mentioned, a lot of changes in personnel, especially with the key positions. Um, but we still got Jeremiah Smith. I mean, he's arguably one of the best, if not the best, football player in college this year. I have him as a high front runner for Heisman. I know we haven't really gotten into those talks yet, but I just have that on there. But I will say that's highly dependent on who's throwing him the ball. Um, Based off of camp and things that I've been reading, Julian Sands probably going to be the one come out on top. But don't sleep on Keen Holtz as well. And then St. Clair also showed out in the spring game, so it's really just a big question mark. And you know how like Ryan Day doesn't like to tell you who's going to be the starter till like Thursday before week one. So we'll see who that is, but most likely it'll be Julian Sand. Um, and then you talked about the running backs. So yeah, we lost our running backs, but there's really a committee of four this year, and I think they'll probably all see playing time in each game. You got C.J. Donaldson, James Peebles, Sam Williams Dixon, and then shoeless, maybe not so shoeless, Bo Jackson back there as well. We'll see how that turns out. Um, and then again, O line, I feel like they're good every year. Um, the one thing about this year is we actually have depth. I know that's been a plague in the past as well, especially like you said 2 years ago, when we're trying to make a run and half of our O line is like fourth string guys. So hopefully that'll help us towards the end of the year. Hopefully we don't have to worry about it, injuries, but with football, it always happens. Definitely not worried about the wide receiver room. I know you said you're worried about leadership on defense, but I think I'm more worried about it on offense, just because you do have
Definitely.
a lot of returners on defense. Caleb Downs being, like you said, like the number one guy coming back for defense. You still got Styles out there. You still got a few guys in that back seven that are seasoned guys and have been with Ohio State. So I see a 10-2 season, and that's being, I think, realistic. I really think they lose the opener to Texas, just because, like I said, they tend to have slow starts, and you're going to start out slow against Texas. It's going to be rough. Um, and then I think they're going to have it's either going to be Penn State or Michigan, in my opinion. Um, Maybe Illinois, but I highly doubt Illinois will beat them. So I'm really thinking the reason I'm not thinking Penn State, or I take Michigan over Penn State, is because Penn State's at the shoe this year. So that'll be a game that hint hint that might be a hammer time game, if you know what I mean.
Most definitely. Most definitely. I mean, yeah, you guys kind of both hit nail on the head, but anytime you have two new coordinators, you're going to raise some questions. I mean, you have Hartline in his first job as a OC back in like 2023, I think is what it was. They crashed and they were 34th in like offensive SP plus, and now obviously Ryan Day goes and gets Chip Kelly for a year, like a rental, and then he goes to the NFL, and now Hartline pretty much gets his restart, like a do-over in a way. Obviously, look at Matt Patricia. He's loads of NFL experience, loads of NFL talent passed through him through the years, and like you were mentioning, mentored by Bill Belichick. But last time he performed well in any capacity from a statistical standpoint was probably from like 2016, if we're being real. That said, in college football nowadays, and this goes for everybody, not just like Ohio State in general, but we've clearly seen the last 2 years, strictly from alignment, strictly from all the portal, from NIL, talent is going to always win. And that's one thing that this team has still. Despite being young, they are very talented still. Hartline and Patricia, they have seen loads of it, obviously. Sand was a top 10 recruit in 2024. Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate are terrifying to look at on the outside. Carnell Tate might have a Jeremiah Smith type year this year. He might be the one. You never know. Like, he's just one of those. He's a wild card. And then, yeah, James Peoples was a former top 100, 200 recruit, I think, or something like that. You have West Virginia transfer CJ Jonathan, insanely physical runner. And then you have a ton of blue chip players with a lot of starting experience, including 2 of those being transfers. And on the defensive side, Bo Atkinson from NC State, Logan George, mainly your 2 defensive transfers that you're going to get, they combined for 14 sacks last year. That's really all that they needed. They didn't need anything crazy on the defensive side. I don't want to say like they were fine how they were, because they could have used a little bit of pass rush help, especially from those edges. Losing Sawyer, losing Simon, losing Ransom hurts in the long. Yeah, I get it. But Sonny Styles kind of working into the nickel. That's going to be a wild card. Kenyatta Jackson Jr., Mickens, Caden McDonald, all those guys, and then you have corners on the super young corners, mind you. Jermaine Matthews. Was he Dakota West or was he Princeton? He was like around our area, like very, very close. Aaron Scott, super. I mean, they're ready for these larger veteran roles, and obviously this is why that Ohio State's going to start out as like one of the better Big Ten teams. And I mean, all that I can say is that I just wish I liked the new hires in terms of staff a little bit more. But then again, if for some reason that they go and win and repeat as national champions, we're all supposed to act as if we assumed that it was going to happen all this time. So it's just kind of like time will tell. And it's
hasn't been done in Ohio State history, by the way.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I mean, it's just like that's how like the stigma, that's how it kind of feels, as if like no surprise that they did it again. It's just like, no, like they're going to have some people to prove wrong this year, like a lot. So
yeah.
We'll move on to, is it Penn State, I think? Is that who we got?
Penn State. Yep.
Yeah, go for it.
All right. Is this the year that Penn State finally beats a team that is better than them? I think the hire of Jim Knowles is going to be way more of a benefit to Penn State than it may be a loss to Ohio State. Jim Knowles is so good. He's been good everywhere he goes, and I just think it just makes this Penn State team, who was already a great defense with Tom Allen, who's moved on now, it just makes them that much better. Allers with the same offensive coordinator for his second year with Kotelnicki, which is big. I think that helps this offense potentially take a huge leap. The running back room is going to be awesome with Singleton and Katron Allen, and the O-line is going to be
Jeremiah's better.
Just we'll get to Notre Dame next pod.
Maybe they're independent, so maybe not.
I do have notes on them, so. But the O-line is going to be great again. Maybe better than it was last year. The big question offensively is just, can they be more explosive in the passing game? Because we didn't see it last year. We did not see the offense that Drew Aller should probably run at Penn State. So the question is, now that you're getting an influx of talent into this wide receiver room, can you now take the top off some defenses, especially in big games? They're top 25 in returning production. The defense is going to be elite with Jim Knowles. I think the addition of Hudson at wide receiver from USC is huge for Aller. And the question will be, can they get a second guy to step up with Tyler Warren being gone? I think that's going to be a really big question. Their out of conference this year is really weak, so you're going to have 3 pretty easy wins. But the tough games this year, Oregon in week 5 off a bye. It is at home, but then you go at Iowa in week 8, then you have a bye, then you go to the Shoe, then Indiana the week after that. It's not the easiest 4-week stretch ever. Now it is Penn State. They are a top 5 team. should be able to get it done. I think this team is 10-2 at worst, and I think that's at worst. I think they're in the playoff. I think they'll probably have a bye.
Yeah, I pretty much have almost identical notes. So uh, the main two games that stuck out to me were Oregon and Ohio State, and like you said, they get a bye before those games, so that's going to be huge in my opinion. I mean, it should be huge. It's just more preparation time. The downside of that is, you're not playing every week. The good thing, get people to heal, but it could be knocking the rust off for a week off. But I have the same exact thing. Even if they drop those two, it's a 10-2 season. They should minimum split, if not beat both of them. So yeah, they have to go. They get Oregon at home, so that should be a win, in my opinion, just because of travel. We've talked about that a lot last year. That was a huge stat, travel time and stuff like that. And then at Ohio State, I mean, it depends on what Ohio State team shows up. It depends on how they're playing, whoever the quarterback is, how they're playing. Right now, I think I have to say this is a 12-0 Penn State team. We'll know more in the future. Yeah. It is scary. It's very scary. It's not that far off the realm of possibilities.
No.
I don't know. I mean, my official prediction will be 11-1, only because they are at the shoe. If they were not at the shoe, I think they win that easy. If they're at home, that's a win for Penn State. So, like I said, I think they get to. We'll get into that in a minute. I'll skip that. But I think they're definitely 100% into the playoff. It just depends on if they get the first round bye or not.
I'm trying to compare of a year for them this year that they might have, but they're a contender. I mean, they made the semifinal last year, and it sounds insane saying that a James Franklin team is a contender, but it's true and it's insane. But he's made college football predictable in the most jarring way possible, and some crazy trends and stuff that I was looking at before we recorded, just in terms of note taking and everything like that. Penn State, they're 34-2 as a favorite. Yep. They're 27-0 when they're favored by at least 6 points. That's pretty freaking impressive. Then again, they're not going to be favored by 6 points a lot in conference play, unless if
they might be this year.
They very well could be. I mean, I don't know if there's a line already for the Penn State-Oregon game. I don't know if there's a lineup for Penn State-Ohio State, but it wouldn't surprise me to see some -3s, -4s in there, probably on their side, to be honest with you. At the Ohio State game, since it's at the show, I'm probably going to roll that as a pick 'em, honestly.
It'll be a +1.5 in my opinion.
I can't really see that.
-1.5, yeah.
But I mean, then again, you look on the flip side of that, they're 0-6 as underdogs. And I mean, they win and they lose the games that they're supposed to. That's pretty much as straightforward and as simple as it's going to get.
That is James Franklin.
The only issue that I have with that, there's one good thing. It makes them very successful. And they can be a winning team when they're, like I said, when they're supposed to. But that also gives them a glass ceiling. You know what I mean? They're either going to stop whenever they're supposed to, or they're just going to SpaceX Elon Musk rocket ship just right freaking smack dab through it. And if that doesn't change now in this season that they have, with everybody that they have returning and all the talent that they've added, I don't think it ever will. And that's personal opinion, maybe. I don't know. Some Penn State fans might disagree, and that's fine. Whatever. Stick with your terrible coach. I don't care. But they have more proven entities than pretty much any team in the country this year. He's one of the sports, I don't want to say I don't want to say best, but I smartest. I don't know. I don't know. There's not really a good way to kind of put that, but in terms of staff concern, I mean, their offensive coordinator, I really wish I knew how to pronounce his last name, but it's something crazy. It's cold at something. I don't know. They improved, though, after that hire from 30th to 9th in offensive SP plus in his first season, when he was calling plays, at least. In the last 10 years alone, though, obviously, and Jim Knowles, like you said, had Oklahoma State's best defense in like what 15, 20 something years, and Ohio State's best in arguably like 20, 20 years. Yeah, probably ever. He's a mastermind. Like we all agreed clearly, but Penn State has finished 7th or better in defensive SP plus for 4 straight years and 6 of the past 8. He's got quality at pretty much every single position this year. But the only thing that I'm concerned with and that kind of makes me shaky about the defense is the depth of it. Of the 17 defensive players that took at least 300 snaps, only 8 of those guys return, including 2 of the 6 that are up front on the line. But then again, when you have a track record like Jim Knowles, you're going to get the benefit of the doubt with it. And then obviously, speaking of track records, obviously Penn State's incoming freshman is a linebacker, and he's also wearing number 11. So say your prayers.
Do you remember the last person that wore number 11?
Abdul.
Do you know the person before that?
Michael Parsons.
There you go. I'm
Dallas
just saying,
Cowboys
like,
drama
it's
queen.
very, very good players have been
Who
wearing
need
that number.
to sign
so,
the contract.
yeah, sign it.
No NFL talk here. Get out of here.
It's all that I'm good at. Sorry.
I mean, and I know I hit on defense a little bit, but I mean, going to the offense, obviously we talked about Aller. When I looked, I remember looking in his recruiting stuff like that. He was number 2 rated pocket passer in his class, and he was kind of looked at as the messiah once he got into Happy Valley. And then everybody's like, this isn't the guy we signed up for. So, but I mean, he's like we were talking about, he's finally got help. But I mean, basically the best thing that I can say about this Penn State team is that if they continue to win as a favorite and lose as a dog, with those occasional squeeze by losing as a dog maybe type game mindset in 2025 this year, will reach the Big Ten championship no matter what. That's pretty easy. If they even if their only loss is at Ohio State, because quite frankly, I think they won in Oregon this year when they're at home. They'll probably be favored in pretty much every other game, especially with their weak non-conference. Obviously, I looked at it. I think it's Nevada, it's Florida International, and Villanova. I think I don't know.
Yeah,
and it's just rarely do all of the arrows point to the right direction in the way that they are for them right now heading into this year. But obviously, it'd be a ridiculous shame to not take advantage of everything that they have this year. So, I think we have Oregon on this. So, I mean, basically, we're just going to go through powerhouses. I mean, I don't think we need to spend an hour talking about Minnesota, as much as I would love to row the boat here and get on PJ Flex train with that contract extension. But
we can just let me roll through those.
We'll roll through those. But obviously, we want to hit on the teams that people care about and know about. So, which one was next? Is that Oregon?
Ducks.
Go ahead.
All right. Oregon, very, very inexperienced this year. Very young. A lot like Ohio State is. They've got one returning starter on offense. One, their center. That's it. However, I do like the addition of Mekhi Hughes from Tulane. That dude is a monster. He was awesome last year. You have a very talented quarterback coming in, redshirt freshman Dante Moore, who can sling it, but we have no idea who he's throwing the ball to. Evan Stewart is hurt, out for the year. And the rest of them all left for the draft. So there's plenty of talent, but not a lot of experience, especially on the offensive side of the ball. They've got 4 new starters on the O-line, 3 of them being transfers, which I touched on last week. Their linebackers are going to be very, very, very good, probably some of the best in the country. But their interior D-line has a bunch of inexperienced depth, and their secondary is a question. So it's a young team with a lot of talent, but they're going to have to find their footing pretty fast because this conference schedule is not super fun. They've got Oregon State in the rivalry game in week 3. Then they are at Penn State. Then they have a bye. Then Indiana at home. Later in the year, they go at Iowa, Minnesota, USC, at Washington. That's the last 4 games of their season. So they're going to be a good team. It's Oregon, Dan Lanning. They recruit well. I just see this as kind of a transition year with all the young talent. I think you're more likely looking at 9-3. You could even see an 8-4, but really good team. I think next year is going to be really fun for them.
Yeah, I don't really have a whole lot on Oregon, other than exactly what you said. They're young. Yeah, I mean, I agree with a 9-3. I can see an 8-4. Honestly, to me, the rest of the Big Ten is just out to play spoiler for Ohio State and/or Penn State. Um, I don't think any of the other ones have the experience or talent to compete with either one of those for the conference or the playoff, in my opinion.
Agreed.
I mean, let me see here. It's hard to roll out a Dan Lanning coach team as much as I love the guy. But over the past 2 seasons, I mean, they're like 26 and 25-3, I think is what it is. Third in SP plus twice, losing to teams that either reached or won the Natty. I mean, it's
Andrew.
They've walked into the Big Ten and just been like, yeah, we're for real. You know what I mean? And he hasn't been a head coach for very long. You know what I mean? But it's hard to prove more than what he has already in 3 years. So I mean, it's hard to, like I said, it's hard to roll the guy out. But this is the year. It's going to be more impressive if they're top 3 again this year than any other year. Obviously, losing Evan Stewart, losing a veteran QB this year. I don't want to call him a veteran, but he was just transferred. But either way, losing a guy like Gabriel is always going to hurt. But he landed a lot of big names in the portal. Hughes from Tulane, massive. Emmanuel Pergon from USC. I think he landed a corner from Ole Miss for SEC or something like that. Was it Ole Miss? I'm losing my track. I don't know. I forget. I think he was from Ole Miss though. And then they had another safety come in from Purdue as well.
Powerhouse Purdue.
Duh. DBU. What are you talking about? Will Stein as a coordinator is his 3rd starting QB in 3 years. We pretty much already kind of know it's going to be Dante. Number 2 overall prospect in 2023. Should have went to Notre Dame. Super recruited by Notre Dame. Sorry, I don't make the rules. But pretty much he stumbled in a freshman audition with Chip Kelly, and when he was at UCLA, and pretty much has studied behind Gabriel for a year, and now he's coming back and getting a shot. I don't necessarily want to say I'm this insanely confident, but similar to Penn State, I think Oregon kind of gets to ease into the season this year. Penn State's going to be their first top 50 opponent, and that's not until week 5. Things pretty much get thick from there, but then they're only going to play only one other projected top 25 team this year, and that is, drum roll please, Indiana. That's it. that's literally it. For a team with as much upside but with few known quality and quantities, that's pretty much like all you can kind of ask for. The schedule's there. It's just a matter of if those guys are going to do their job. I think we have the powerhouse, the I can't even get it out. Let's just do Michigan.
Yeah, Dylan might want to turn his ears off for this one.
Already read it. It's fine.
Oh, is it bad? Is it that bad? I didn't even look.
All right. So, does anyone know what Michigan did last year?
Nothing.
They went 7-5.
State.
They went 7-5 and beat 2 of the best teams in the country, Ohio State and Alabama.
They did
without an offense.
Never mind.
And to add to that, they're top 25 in returning production this year. They bring in 5-star QB Bryce Underwood, who is probably going to start week 1. I believe the number 1 quarterback in the country this year, correct?
Yes.
Yep. So he's going to be pretty electric for a team that hasn't been electric in ever, probably. The offense is going to be young and inexperienced, however. They're bringing in a new running back, Justice Haynes from Alabama. Some young wide receivers are going to be playing, and 2 new O-line starters. So there's going to be questions, but with how bad it was last year, there's probably not a way it gets worse. So there's that. On the defensive side is where things are going to be very interesting. The defense is loaded. You've got elite front 7 guys all over, even with Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham going in the top 15 this year. The biggest question that they're going to have defensively is their cornerback room. They lost 5 of their top 7 snap count guys in the secondary or in the cornerbacks. So that's not great, especially when you're facing, Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, and Brandon Ennis. But the schedule is really easy. You're at OU in week 2. It's a tough game, but we don't know what to expect from Oklahoma to begin the year with all the newness they have as well. You're at Nebraska in week 4. You're at USC in week 7, then Washington at home, and then Ohio State to finish the year. That is 2 ranked teams, and you could argue that Oklahoma probably may not be ranked to start the year. So they play the bottom 4 teams in the conference, according to the odds to win the Big Ten. And I think the team makes the playoff. I think they're going 10-2. I think they're beating Ohio State, and I think they're making the Big Ten championship.
But do they win the Big Ten?
We'll get to that later.
That's true. We'll get to that. But, I mean, what seed, though? Because,
it'd be
not revealing
at the bottom.
that either.
No
if
way.
they make it, it'll be at the bottom.
Not revealing that either. We'll get to the playoff bracket later.
10 through 12. Right?
Maybe.
Oh, my. Okay. As much as I kind of hate to say it, I mean, I'm going to pass it off to Dylan to review Michigan now.
I mean, let me get my Ohio State bias out of the way. It's not that far-fetched. It's really not, especially if they play well. The new guys have to come in. Bryce Underwood has to have a great year. The big question, I mean, you just said it, the entire offense is new. It's hard to find the good in Michigan when you're an Ohio State fan. But I'm trying here. I'm trying. Defensively, exactly what you said. I mean, you're facing the elite guys at Ohio State specifically, elite receivers all around the country, and you have 2 guys that played the last couple of years in an elite, in a Power 4 conference. So a lot of question marks. I don't want to underrate them because last time we underrated them, they dog walked us. So there's that. A 28-point favorite that I even told Cade. I was like, I think I've said it in our podcast.
We did.
I was like, there ain't no way this game's going to be that far apart.
It was 17 for the longest, and then it went up to 21.
Yeah, then it jumped to 28, 21, whatever the heck it was. And I was like, no, there ain't no way. Ain't
that
3
was
scores.
The easiest bet probably ever, but it really hurt watching it unfold.
It was painful. But yeah, so that's the thing. I mean, I'd rather be in this spot as a college football team in Michigan with question marks and the unknown versus Ohio State this year where it's an expected. Because, if you don't do great, you don't win these games. It's we kind of probably knew that. But when you go to win these games, it's maybe we underrated you. Maybe, whatever. So that's about as nice as I can be to Michigan. So that's all I'm going to say.
That's fair. I mean, I don't like him just as much as the next guy, but the only thing that I guess I can necessarily say, if you can beat Ohio State and Alabama without a QB, just kind of think of what you can with a QB, I guess you could say. I mean, the first season after all of the departures that they had, even with Harbaugh, even with McCarthy, Corum, all those guys. I mean, they played with one hand tied behind their back the entire season last year. It felt like they went undefeated when they scored at least 24 points when the national scoring average was like 25, 26, 20. It was in between 25 and 28. But they only reached that mark in 6 of 13 games this year, thanks pretty much to the black hole at the QB spot. That's pretty much about it. They were 91st in total QBR and 131st, which is last, in passing yards per game.
It can't get worse.
Yeah, it's quite literally. Yeah, they ran the ball until they had to punt, and then they hoped the defense would make the stops and then maybe set them up for some points. But they managed to beat Ohio State and Alabama with absurd scores of 13-10 and 19-13, and then but one. I mean, one expects far more from a defending national champion. Obviously, I get it. It happens. So now you obviously, like you were saying, you have Underwood coming. You have Justice Haynes. How about UMass transfer CJ Hester?
Nah.
And I know they got a wide receiver from Indiana as well, and McCauley. I mean, those are the only players who pretty much got 200 yards from scrimmage last year as a whole. So it's not necessarily anything that's like mind-boggling. But yeah, we've already went over the defense. There's no need to even go over that again. But it's just number 10 ranking in SP Plus is pretty aggressive, though. It's going to require a massive offensive improvement. But with the schedule, like you said, only featuring 2 guys that are projected better than 30th, I mean, they won't really need a top 10 team to win a ton of games, in my opinion. I mean, they have to be subpar majority of the year, top 15 at best, maybe top 20 if you can squeeze by them. It's not that far-fetched, though, like we were kind of already hitting on. So other than that, it's pretty much it for Michigan. It's not really much else there. Who do we got next?
USC.
Oh, this is my time. Let's go. Never mind.
The Fighting Lincoln Rileys are back after a disappointing end and really just year. 7-5 went under their win total after losing Caleb Williams to the draft. Jaden Maeva returns at quarterback after playing the last 4 games last year with Miller Moss being benched. A lot of portal additions on defense, and there's not a lot of returning production for a Lincoln Riley team. Is anyone surprised? No one is surprised. But it's Lincoln Riley. You're going to have a good offense, whether it may not be top 5 or top 10, but you're looking at probably a top 25 offense. He's a very good offensive coach. And the best thing he could have possibly done was hiring DeAnton Lynn as his defensive coordinator. Stealing him from UCLA may have saved his career at USC. They were 105th in defense when they made the Pac-12 championship game 2 years ago. 48th last year. Now, you are playing Big Ten teams, so kind of have to add that in there, but still, it's a huge jump. And the question really this year is going to be, can the defense carry the offense for a little bit, or if at all, during the season? Because if they can jump up to 30th, top 25, top 20, you're looking at a team that could be pretty good. They're going to have a 4-0 start. They're out of conference is a joke. They're at Illinois in week 5. We've got a bye Michigan, at Notre Dame, bye at Nebraska. So you've got, 4 games in 6 weeks? It's pretty good. And then Iowa in week 12, at Oregon in week 13. There's some tough games in there. I like the games they get at home. I think 8-4, but you could see a 9-3, and I think Lincoln Riley stays another year in Cali.
There is no such thing as home field advantage when you're at USC. I've never seen more than like 70% of those fans at those games.
Yeah, but they're playing Iowa. No one's going to California there.
I'm
from
just saying,
Iowa.
I've never seen them fill up half of the second deck. So like this is the second deck. They're always up to here, and that's about it. The rest of this is for some weird jersey that's never even existed. I don't.
Spoken like a true Notre Dame fan.
It's the most hideous stadium in the entire country. It's terrible. I don't. I mean, do you have anything before?
My only thing is like looking at the schedule. I agree. I think they are going 4-0 to start the season, and I think they could be. Well, their strength isn't there, so I don't really think if they're not already in the top 25, I don't know how high up they'll get. Um, but I think they go on the stretch there. I think they lose to Illinois. Shocker, but travel. I think Illinois is higher ranked than USC should be in this. I think like Illinois, Michigan, I think are about the same level in the Big Ten this year, in my opinion. We'll get to them in a minute, but I think they lose to Illinois. I think they could beat Michigan.
So,
Is that a home? Is that a home game? Is that what we
That's
said?
yeah,
at
a home
Michigan.
game that doesn't matter.
No,
Oh, is it
yeah,
at Michigan?
it's no. It's at USC. Sorry,
I mean, the only thing that's going to factor into it is travel, but
Right.
But either way, it sucks going across the country and playing a pretty decent team, obviously.
right. And coming off a loss with a bye, I think they could beat Michigan.
Yeah.
They're obviously losing to Notre Dame. I don't think that game will be close. Then another bye. And Nebraska, we'll see what happens. And then I don't really know if there'll be another true loss in there till Oregon. So
Yeah, I'd love to be in Notre Dame.
9-3, 8-4. Yeah, I agree with that.
I'm working on it, though. We're working on it. If this is the last time that those two teams play together, I'm going to absolutely lose my mind, for one thing. But yeah, I guess I can rant about Lincoln Riley for
Join a conference. Sorry.
Your school's broke, dude.
If you joined a conference, the rivalry would
If you
stay.
stopped handing money in McDonald's bags, you would probably get a recruit or something. Yeah, how about that from like 3 years ago? Or wait, no, that was not 3 years ago.
That
How long
was
ago?
6 years
That
ago.
was sick. Yeah, that was a while.
Jesus Christ.
I mean, Lincoln Riley, 15-13 in his last 28 games at this piss poor ketchup and mustard school. As he hasn't had, or as Riley has since an 11-1 start, your name's pretty much going to automatically show up on a hot seat list. Pretty much, that's pretty much just the way that college football coaching carousels kind of work nowadays. But I mean, if he isn't building his team like a guy with the best job security in the world, I mean, the win total has fallen for pretty much 2 straight years now. But he's only signed about 16 transfers. It's pretty decent, solid number, I guess, for this year in a way. But
It's gone down.
What was that?
It's gone down.
Yeah,
It was like 30 last year.
Yeah, less than half of those guys are seniors. Obviously, like you were going with Mayava, only 10 of 13 guys with 300 snaps returned to that team, but he's got a pretty prohibitive buyout at the moment, if I'm not mistaken.
He's not getting fired. No way.
I don't necessarily want to say that he's not getting fired.
They would have to go 2-10.
You think that bad?
They could go 5-7. He would stay because of the buyout.
I mean, it's not an insane reach, I guess. But I mean, Lynn, I think he, as a coordinator himself, I mean, he didn't do bad. So from a defensive standpoint, I mean, they improved from pretty much 105th to 48th in defensive SP plus, thanks to pretty much big play prevention in a way, and a very good third down defense. I'll give them that. They had a pretty decent showing there. But Ramsey's the only returning starter in the secondary. But he's a talented guy. Harvey and Fitzgerald obviously should help. Gentry's a decent playmaker at linebacker, nothing like Ray Malaluga style, but he's a decent, solid option. They have a 330-pound guy from Kentucky and a 350-pound guy from Georgia. That's going to be on their front line, so that's definitely going to provide some immovability, I think. I don't think they're going to be elite, but I think slight improvement, just like a steady upbringing, is going to be a decent, a good possibility. The only thing I'll say about the offense is that their pass catchers are actually very incredibly slept on. I know Malachi, or I think is it Malachi or Mackay? Lamon, I think is who it is. He he was second behind Jeremiah Smith in yards per route run last year. So he's very busy on the outside. Not a slot guy. And outside the numbers, more. I don't want to call him a deep ball threat, but in a way, I guess they technically could use him this year with Hudson kind of gone. But I think the line is more experienced, especially they have, like I was saying earlier, they have 2 senior transfers, especially on the line. But I don't really think there's necessarily any upside. It's kind of like a lateral movement. But regardless, I think Riley, should have enough to field another top 20 offense in a way. If he develops a little bit more than that, maybe win another 7 games. And then at that time, it's going to be buy time for next year in a way, because then you're going to have batten down the hatches for this team, because then that's when the hot seat's going to start sparking a minute. I think next year. I don't think it's going to be this year, unless, like you said, unless if it's that bad. But depending on how bad this year is, it's going to be next year. So that's all I'll say about them. I'm not going to trash on it, whatever, as much as I hate them. But they're a mediocre Big Ten team, as much as I can say.
Look at us and being nice to our rival teams.
I'm not being nice. I'll see you.
I wouldn't say anything about that was nice.
Could have been a lot
All right.
worse.
That's true. Indiana's next.
Great, another one.
The surprise of 2024. They're back. Brand new team, basically. And they have one of the best coaches in the Big Ten. I'm already going to go ahead and say that. He's in year 2, and I'd say he's one of the best already. You can't even look at
Ladies and gentlemen, Jake Dozier has been kicked off of the Hammer Time podcast at this time. We will not be taking further questions. We thank you for his service and his time, due diligence for his work that he has done here in his 2 weeks. But we just felt that it was best to part ways mutually. Thank you.
All right. Well, 11-1 last year, made the playoff.
Oh my God. Oh man.
No, I'm messing around. Well, not really. I do think Kirk Cignetti's a really good coach, but this year is going to be tough for them. They've got only 8 of their 22 starters return. But the good thing is that 4 of them are kind of the most important players on their team. Surratt, who was a dog last year, he was awesome. He comes back. Kamara was a dog. At defensive end. Fisher was really good, run stopping. He'll be back. And then Pons, who is basically a shutdown corner, will also be back to play defense for them. Mendoza comes in from Cal. He's going to play quarterback. He's a good but not great quarterback. Really good against zone, and then he's got the legs to be able to create against man. I think the defense is going to be really good. I think they were top 20 last year. I think they're going to stay the same, and they could be better. They play a really aggressive style, and I just think it works with these Big Ten teams they play. I am going to go out on a limb and say they don't make the playoff again this year. I know that's crazy, but the schedule is not cupcake this year. You're going to have Illinois in week 4 at home. You're going to go to Iowa, and then you'll have a bye, and then you'll go at Oregon. It's a pretty tough 4-week stretch, even getting the bye before Oregon just to travel. And then you'll have at Penn State in week 11, Wisconsin back-to-back weeks, which we don't know about Wisconsin, but at Penn State's going to be tough. So I think they'll be 8-4, 9-3. I think they're going to be good again. I think Cignetti's a good coach. And yeah, they're going to be led by defense.
Not insane, but yeah, I get it.
I was going to say, that branch you said about them not making the playoff, I was like, I didn't know that was a branch.
Crazy.
I didn't know that was...
I'm zagging.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know about the top 25. I think 8-4 is probably generous for this team.
Yeah.
Probably more 7-5. I don't think they're going to be. I think they'll be above 500. But they, like you said, they got some. Their strength of schedules up there a little bit more this year. I don't think we're going to be making a trip out there to see anything. So, like we did last year, that was a fun trip. But great stadium. That's
It was
about all I
pretty.
got
It
to
was.
say.
That was a pretty fun trip. That was a pretty fun trip. I did forget about that.
I mean, that's really all I got to say. The only person they're returning is Signetti, so
It feels like it. Yeah.
don't pan the room, Cade. Don't pan your room.
In terms of like, in projections, from a projection standpoint, I have them at 23rd in SP Plus, which, granted, compared to how they were from like 2021 to 2023, those 2 year span, like they were averaging at like 91.7 SP Plus ranking. So it was 97 on offense and 77 on defense. I have them projected at 8.1 wins. It's pretty much right at that total, and then nearly 5.5 wins in the Big Ten. And in terms of conference play, I don't necessarily think that's a reach. I think it's on par. But I mean, thankfully, the key thing from last year is obviously thanks to pretty much a combination of like aggressive run defense and then big play prevention against the pass. They had like the best combo of a defensive efficiency and explosiveness that you could pretty much hope for. In terms of like success rate allowed, it was at like 36%, I think, last year in terms of all of FBS teams. And then like yards allowed let me rephrase, explosive plays. It was percentage wise or like yards wise, it was like at just under 10. So, I mean, if you're roughly sitting around like 9 to 10 yards even, and that's like your explosive plays, or that's like the biggest plays that you're allowing, the teams are going to take that all day. That's a win. The schedule is obviously, it was lighter than some others, granted, last year. Everybody knows that one. But even against pretty much the best offenses on the schedule, they held Ohio State to its third worst yards per play average of the season, and its worst yards per successful play average of the season. Notre Dame had our 98-yard touchdown run from Jeremiah in the playoff, but after that, it was 4.5 yards per play. That's it. They were a good, talented defense, but I mean, I bet it will be again. I don't think it's necessarily an improvement. I think it's kind of a lateral movement. But he brought in 4 linemen who combined for 24 tackles for loss last year. One of those guys is an absolute demon from Western Kentucky. He's a freaking animal. And then you have 4 defensive back transfers that are pairing with D'Angelo Pons. With Pons I think he's going to be a stud in the Big Ten this year. I loved watching him last year. His energy was nuts. We went to that Washington game. I think he had like a fumble recovery or something like that. And that place when it was at
was it a pick six or was it a fumble?
I don't even know what it was ruled as.
I think it was a pick six. It was like right at the line.
It was like a deflection. Yeah, that sounds right.
He's a dude.
I agree. But the only concern that leaves me with Indiana and Signetti is that you cannot sneak up on everybody twice. Trips to Penn State, trips to Oregon and Iowa, and then a huge visit from Illinois, like you were saying. Like I said, I doubt they're a playoff team, but it seems doable. That pretty much that he turns the program as a whole into a stable, consistent top 25 program. That's not a reach. I think that's very doable. Like, if you said that like a year ago, you're getting laughed at and like throwing rocks. Like, you know what I mean? It's not really close at that point. But I don't have anything bad to say about them. More so just to fan base, if they do listen to this, just to kind of calm your horses. I wouldn't really expect much this year, but I wouldn't expect necessarily anything bad. It's just not going to be your traditional miracle run that you're probably hoping for. But solid team overall.
And the next team on our preview is Illinois. They're number one in returning production in the Big Ten this year. They have a very good coach in Brett Bielema. They won 10 games last year, and I'll go ahead and say it right now. I don't expect them to get to 10 this year. They were really lucky in close games and turnover luck last year. The defense is going to be really good again. It's Brett Bielema. But they do have to replace all 4 starters on the defensive line, which is never a good thing. However, their secondary is going to be really good, so I do expect like a top 20, top 25 unit there. The offense was 55th last year in SP Plus and returns quarterback Luke Altmaier, 4 offensive linemen, which is a good starting point. However, they do lose their best running back in McCray and their 2 top receivers, Bryant and Franklin. The question will be, can this production that they had be replaced by transfers or incoming talent? I think they're going to take a slight step back. I don't trust Altmaier a ton. He was super lucky last year, had a lot of turnover-worthy plays that just didn't turn into turnovers. If he can change that, this offense will skyrocket. If he can't, then it's going to plummet a little bit. They're at Duke in week 2, at Indiana in week 4, USC, Ohio State in week 7. Then they have a bye at Michigan. They do play 4 of the bottom 6 in your odds. But I think there's 3 losses, especially your Ohio State. I think at Duke's a tricky game. At Washington's not going to be easy. But 19 wins in 2 years is pretty impressive for an Illinois team.
Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'm going to add is I could see a 10-win team here. I think the only absolute loss for me is Ohio State. Everything else, I mean, like you said, at Washington just because of travel. I don't think Wisconsin's going to be that good this year. Other than that, I mean, like USC, Indiana, Duke, that's your kind of 3 50-50 games in my opinion. I think it's 10-2 is not as far of a stretch as it may seem. But I could, like you said, I can see 9-3 landing pretty easily for this team.
I want to be so all in on this team so bad, but I can't really get there. In terms of projections, like similar to Indiana, I think they're a couple breaks away from a really good run. 19th in SPS and SP Plus. I project them at 8.7 wins, 6 in the Big Ten. I think they were definitely an Indiana shadow last year. But, I mean, yeah, they won 10 games for the first time in 20-something years. And Bielema's a phenomenal coach. I love this guy. And if you guys remember him absolutely embarrassing Beamer on that bowl game. Dude, he instantly became one of like my favorite coaches in the country. Even with the experience though, like we were all pretty much been saying, I think 10 games is tricky again. But in May, there's a lot of things that could pretty much lead to a decent turnaround, whether that's good or bad. And came up with pretty much, I mean, Illinois is like one of the only teams that are ranked in the top 25 in all 3 categories, and that's turnovers, there's close game fortune, and then lineup stability. Illinois won 2 overtime games. They scored on the final play of regulation to beat Rutgers, which is bleh. Then they made late stops to pretty much keep their leads held against teams like Kansas and South Carolina. Either that was later in the year in the bowl game, obviously. But 31st in SP Plus last year, more like an 8-win team that accidentally won 10 in a way. That's pretty much the best. That's the way I kind of look at it. But that kind of makes them look like a prime team that's a better team, worse record. And that's kind of where I stand this year. Bielema in his first 3 years, they averaged a 90 SP Plus ranking. And then they came far less of a liability in 2024, and then it still wasn't great. Like you were saying, they're 55th there. But experience produces steady, balanced, sturdy play early in the year, I would be careful because by the end of September, if they they will have played toss-up games like swing games with Duke, which I think is the most wild card game on their schedule this year, in my opinion. I'm not necessarily too worried about the conference schedule as much as I am that Duke game, because Duke is very shaky with the trends they've added this year as well, which we're going to talk about them in a minute as well. But if they win all three of, like you were saying, Duke, Indiana, USC, and they're going to be in the playoff discussion very early in the year, and it's going to last until pretty much up until that point where they play Ohio State, similar to Indiana's tenure last year when they were pretty much hot, undefeated until they went into the shoe and got their shoes beaten off. It's hard to get the breaks that you need in close games for 2 straight years, in my opinion. I just don't know if the luck kind of continues, but time will tell. Like I said, I love him as a coach, so he's a very fun guy to watch. So we'll definitely have to wait and see. Let me see. We have Iowa.
Iowa, yeah. So bringing in a new quarterback who they think is going to be better than any quarterback they've had since C.J. Beathard, which isn't a high bar. However, this dude's actually pretty good. 10,000 yards in 4 years at South Dakota State at the FCS level is a pretty impressive feat. You've got 3 offensive line starters returning from a team that ran the ball well. They were 69th in production, according to SP Plus last year, which from 128th in 2023 is a pretty big jump. Not saying that they're going to jump another 60 spots, but I mean, if you could get 10 to 20 spots higher, that's super helpful for this team. The defense, however, only returns 4 starters. However, it is Iowa, and their defense is going to be good. More than likely going to be in the top 10. It's top 5 almost every year. So it will probably be the same. Big question is just, can they get better on offense with a new quarterback, new running back, Caleb Johnson, goodbye. But they do have some good guys behind him. I think they'll go more committee backfield this year. And they were 1-3 in one-score games last year. So the question is, can they improve that? Maybe go 2-2, maybe have a winning record. Schedule is tough. You are at home against Iowa State in week 2. You have Indiana in week 4, Penn State in week 6. You have a bye in week 10, but then you go Oregon at USC, Michigan State at Nebraska. It's a tough 4-game stretch to finish, especially the first 2. I have 8-4, but I think you could see anywhere from 6-6 to 10-2.
Yeah, I mean, it's 10-2 would be an insane season for Iowa. I'm definitely leaning more towards the 7-5. I think is where I landed for this team. Like you said, it's a tough schedule for them this year. And who was their offense last year? It was Caleb Johnson. I mean, they didn't really have much outside of him, and losing him is tough into the draft. And yeah, Iowa offense has always been a question mark. I hope for Gronkowski that he can do something. Or how do you say his name? Gronowski. That guy, Gronk Jr. But yeah, I don't expect much from them. 7-5, 8-4 would be a good season in my opinion.
Yeah, I have them projected at 7 wins even this year. Roughly 4.5 in the Big Ten, which I think is pretty spot on there. But they play that stupid, frustrating zone defense that pisses everybody off. They run on first down like 95% of the time, and then they punt. They punt very well. Other than that, that's good old Iowa football, baby. But 6 games I have projected within 1 score, and then, like you said, visits from Penn State and Oregon. Pretty much, Iowa will pretty much scare at least one of those teams. I just don't know which one. I think it's going to be one of those. Was it 2016 or 2018 where they kind of went on a stretch of did they beat Ohio State one of those years? It was at home. I remember because it was like a night game and they wore those like gray, yellow jerseys. I don't know. It was whatever, one of those. But they do that thing at least once a year. But yeah, close games will make the difference between potential Big Ten contention or finishing 7-5. But it's almost pretty much comforting knowing exactly what they're going to look like regardless of what happens. So not really much there. Let me
Talk
see.
about Matt Rule.
Yeah, I guess you can go ahead and talk about Matt Rule and the Carolina Panthers legend.
Okay.
You mean Mahomes Jr.?
Or something, or that too. Yeah.
This is my personal sleeper in the Big Ten.
Oh, great. Brandon Walker Jr. over here.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying they'll win it. I'm just saying I do like this team. The secondary is going to be really, really good. Now, they are losing their front six, which is not great. They do have some portal additions coming in. I don't love that they lost Tony White at defensive coordinator. He really, really helped this team a lot last year, especially with how inconsistent their offense was at times. Speaking of the offense, it was 99th in SP Plus last year. It has to improve for this team to be any better in a win record column. But I do like what they did to surround Raiola. I'm a big fan of Dane Key. He is a Nashville kid, and he was good at Kentucky. Big play threat. And then they get Hunter from Cal as well, who I also like. The offense can improve more than the defense regresses losing White. I think this team is going to be better than they were last year. And I think the schedule is manageable. Michigan in week 4 at home, at Minnesota in week 8, USC in week 10 at home, at UCLA, bye week in week 12, then you go at Penn State, Iowa. Just saying, I think Nebraska could be really good. I have 9-3, and then I'll finish with Matt Rule as a head coach in college football is 3-21 in his first year, is 13-12 in his second year, and is 21-7 in his third year. So we're in year 3 of Matt Rule.
Yeah, I just pulled up their schedule again. I don't think you're really too far off. I think if they play well, if Raiola has a great year, if these people that they brought in to help him actually help him, the defense plays decent, they could have a shot at beating Michigan. I mean, that is a home game for them. And I honestly think that week 4 game is going to swing the season one way or the other for them. They beat Michigan, then absolutely I could see them being a powerhouse team and then maybe only losing to Penn State. So that's a 1-loss Nebraska team. That's insane. I don't think that happens. I think they end up losing to Michigan, unfortunately. I will definitely be pulling for Nebraska in that game. Don't get me wrong. But if they lose to Michigan, I think then they'll have roll off 3-4 wins again. So they'll be sitting at like 3, 4, 7-1 at that point. Then they got USC again, swing game in my opinion. Say they win it. Yeah, I mean, a 1-loss, 2-loss Nebraska team's not too far out of the question. But like I said, I really think that Michigan game week 4 is going to tell us what we need to know about Nebraska and not even Matt Rule. It's more of the people that they have playing the game, because coaching can only take you so far. So
I might be on the complete opposite end of the boat. I don't know. I have them projected at 7 wins, roughly like 7.5, 8. It's going to be one. I mean, what's their win total? Is it 8.5?
7.5.
It is 7.5.
I think so.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'm seeing it. I see relatively only 4 to 5 wins in the Big Ten, which I think is somewhat spot on there. But if you're from like the 1980s, if you're from the 1990s, you've got to say that pretty much like the idea of Nebraska finishing with a losing record for like 7 straight years was pretty much insane. It's one thing to pretty much go away and drift away from national title contention like they pretty much have been in those eras. But once you start drifting away from bowl contention, that's like a ridiculously low bar for this kind of program. I don't really want to say that he has them back on a path towards the top 10, but he at least ended the bowl drought. I can say that. I know they lost 4 straight games in the middle of the season last year after going 5-1, which, like I said, it's a good start. And if he nails those 2 coordinator hires, the growth obviously should continue. I think they have 2 dynamite seasons with Tony Light leading the defense. They promoted their DBs coach. I know they left when White left for Florida State. The secondary as a whole, they're loaded with experience, like you were saying, Jake, as well. I don't know. It's a big question mark. And aiming for double-digit wins is obviously a stretch. Aiming for 9, I think, is a stretch. But the schedule is built for a fast start, similar to last year's. Only one of those first 6 opponents is projected in the top 60. And if the offense improves more than the defense potentially regresses, I think a potential 10th isn't necessarily off the table. I don't want to call it insane, but it's just not my favorite take in the world. But I'm not going to necessarily rule it out completely, is all I want to say. Similar takes to pretty much Indiana, I guess. I could say the same thing about them in Illinois. They're literally all a couple games from a really good season. That's pretty much it. I think our next one is probably my favorite on the board, if I'm being honest. So if
it's your favorite, you take it.
Man. So we have pretty much all of our sleepers for this conference. Dylan was Illinois. We had Jake's at Nebraska. Mine at the end of the tunnel is none other than the Washington Huskies and Jedd Fisch. I absolutely love Jedd Fisch. Love this guy. I talked about this last week as well, so I'm not going to spend too much time, I guess. But I have them projected just a little bit over 7.5 wins, just a little bit over 4.5 wins in the Big Ten. I think that they can pretty much up that by like 1 number, maybe 2. I hope they can get to 5 wins in the Big Ten. That would be glorious, but I don't know. That's tough. So with the things I want to start out with is Demon Williams. His QBR in terms of Big Ten quarterback play, in terms of conference play, if I'm not mistaken, he was top 5, and he was ahead of Drew Aller for a lot. A good number. Let me look at it. Let me see. 84.3. Drew Aller was at a 77.5. Miller Moss, when he was at USC, was a 74, even though he pretty much was benched about halfway through there. One only above him was Curtis Rourke, Dylan Gabriel, and Will Howard. Those were high 80s QBR numbers, but 84.3 for Demon is really not bad at all. He started the last 2 games of a relative lost season. Obviously, last year they went 0-2, but the defense also gave up 84 combined points. But if you look on the bright side of that, he completed 43 of 52 passes for 570 yards, 5 touchdowns, only 1 turnover, and no sacks. He went on to rush for 137. And then he also scored 1 on the ground. He did take 15 sacks. I meant to say that earlier. He didn't. He did take 15 sacks in those games. He was obviously still learning of what he could and could not get away with, pretty much, and that in terms of college level of play. But like I said, he produced that 84.3 QBR in those games, which would have a Curtis Rourke-like season, like I was pretty much saying there. So the thing that I have with question marks with him is that if he is genuinely good and does not have 1 million sacks by the end of this year, then there is a legitimate chance for a second-year leap in this offense. He'll have a very relatively experienced O-line in front of him and another 1,000-yard back in Jonah Coleman, which I love, and a very physical backup. Similar that I like to kind of compare is Adam Muhammad. I like to think that he is I don't want to say he's up there with Katron Allen, but he can be. His build is ridiculous. That's not a stretch. I don't think it's really that far of a stretch. He's got the build of a Katron Allen guy. You have receivers like Denzel Boston, Penn State transfer, and Omari Evans, and another sophomore, and a massive tight end in Decker DeGraff. In terms of depth of experience on an offense, will be minimal. But I think there's mountains of upside. Like it's this team and this offense as a whole is a potential landmine. And obviously with Williams' offense, that's a pretty wide range of outcomes, I think. But the range for the defense might be even larger because of all of the newness that comes from that. Only 5 of 15 with 200 plus snaps are returning. Walters replaced Steve Belichick, who obviously left for North Carolina at coordinator there. Walters is a very successful defensive coordinator, though, at Missouri and Illinois, if you remember that, before pretty much going an abysmal tenure at Purdue. That was very short. But Jed Fish obviously aimed for known disruptors in the portal and found a very, very good lineup. I don't even know. I don't want to try to pronounce his last name, but one of the other DJ brother from Arizona, they got him. They have a guy from Utah and Peppa. I know that's a very common name in the Big 12 era. They have a linebacker, Jacob Manu from Arizona. They have another linebacker from Washington State, another linebacker from UCF, and then 3 DBs as a whole. There's not really many proven returnees, but obviously you have edge rushers and Isaiah Ward and Ephesians Prysock, who are very solid. I think Jed Fish pretty much generated a ton of traction in his second season at Arizona. It's not necessarily hard to envision something that's similar, I guess, happening here at Washington, but he'll need to hit on a lot of transfers, and he'll need his faith in a guy with 150 dropbacks. That needs to be rewarding. So I think Demond, I don't want to say he has Heisman potential because he doesn't. I don't think there's not really a world where I think that he's contending for it. But the offense has top 20 potential is the best that I could say. And then the defense, like I was saying as well, they're meh. But as long as the offense does better than the defense and kind of keeps up, I don't think they have a problem winning 8 games.
So I think eight's the ceiling for this team, in my opinion. I think they could build on something this year to be great, or even talked about more next year. But 8, I think 8's generous. I think it's going to more land around 6, 7. When 6 and 6, 7 and 5 type season. They could play spoiler to a few teams, but they get Ohio State, but I still don't think they're there yet to compete with Ohio State unless they catch them sleeping, which is very possible. They have to go to Michigan. They get Illinois at home, which could be okay, but then Oregon. I just 7, 8 wins. That's all I see here.
Yeah, I've got 7. I think they'll be fun. I think they're going to be a fun team. I really do like Demond. I think they're going to be a fun offense. I don't care who you get at defensive coordinator after what they did last year. I know that they've got a bunch of transfers, but it's hard to bank on transfers coming in and being awesome in year one, and especially when it's almost your entire defense. It's going to be hard. And like you said with the schedule, you're playing Ohio State, Oregon, and Michigan. Those are hard games. At UCLA is not a cakewalk. You get Illinois. I think there's 7. I think you can get 8. I would be hard pressed to find after 8. The next team we have up is Michigan State. Year 2 under Jonathan Smith coming over from Oregon State, and year 2 of Aiden Childs at quarterback with a bunch of different weapons around him. This team was pretty disappointing last year, which we kind of expected. Just a complete turnaround that Jonathan Smith had to do here. But Childs has to be better to get this team to a bowl game, which I think might be around the ceiling we're going to get at here this year. They've got 3 new wide receivers from lower level schools. They do return Nick Marsh and Jack Velling, the tight end, who I personally think is really good. I think the offense can improve this year. They were 99th last year. You're hoping to get to mid-60s. We'll see. I think Childs being more consistent is going to be the reason that happens. The defense was top 50, which I think it'll stay. They were really good against the run. They return all 4 defensive linemen. However, they are replacing their 3 linebackers and 3 secondary starters. The problem with this team, even if they do improve, is this schedule is pretty brutal. Boston College out of conference in week 2 is no joke, even though they don't have a huge win total. Boston College is a good team, Bill O'Brien. They have USC at home in week 4. Then they have a bye. Then they go at Nebraska. Then they are at Indiana in week 8. Then they have Michigan. Then they are at Minnesota. Then they have a bye. Then they're Penn State at Iowa. It's just really tough to see anything past 6-6. You'd have to get a major upset, which I think is something that's going to be hard to see this year.
Yeah, I think 6 is pretty spot on in my opinion of where they're going to be at. I mean, I wouldn't even be surprised at 4 or 5. Highly dependent on the offense. Just a question mark team.
Yeah.
I haven't projected 4.7, 2 wins in conference play. So pretty abysmal there. They were 4-3 after a decent win over when they played Iowa last year. And Childs actually played really, really good against an Iowa defense that usually makes the lives of young quarterbacks hell in a way. But it was almost pretty much downhill from there. They scored 17 points only one time in its final 5 games, and then they beat Purdue. That was it. But they only beat Purdue by 7. I like Aiden as a scrambler. He's a pretty talented dual threat guy, but he took at least 2 sacks in 10 to 12 games, and then he threw over half of his 11 interceptions when Michigan State's in-game win probability were between 30 and 70%, meaning that they were very, very costly turnovers at that point in time. I don't think it takes Jonathan Smith until year 4 to get going at this school the way that it did at Oregon State, but I'd honestly be incredibly surprised if it happens in year 2. His child's development is a giant question mark, and it's definitely a process, but he'll have a lot of new skill position players around him in terms of receivers like Nick Marsh, tight ends, Jack Beeling, very solid weapons there. Smith did add some lower level transfers from a running back from Sacramento State, as well as another receiver from Middle Tennessee. I believe there was another guy from the MAC school in there as well. So the offense will obviously improve, I think. There's not really much worse you can get from finishing 119th in offensive SP+, but there's definitely a mountain to climb back to mediocrity from there. On the defensive side, Rossi pretty much, I think his unit should pretty much maintain a top 50 level. I think they were good against the run, and they do return 4 of their top 6 linemen. They did get a really good transfer from Florida State, but the top 3 linebackers and 3 starters in the secondary are now gone. But again, from the portal, they got some outside linebackers, 4 new cornerbacks and defensive backs. And they pretty much, like I said, they have a decently high value in the secondary level of play. So I think the defense carries as much weight as it can, but the schedule with 5 top 30 opponents doesn't really offer much room for error. So that's I see 4 wins. We're gonna close it out with UCLA. I know this guy's been itching to get this one knocked out, so I'll let him take reins on this one. Go for it.
This team's going to be really hard to project this year. You're going to have a team that's really new. Only 2 of their top 15 defensive players returned. They have a new offensive coordinator. And, of course, they have a new quarterback in Nico Iamaleava coming from Tennessee. If you didn't know that by now, then you live under a rock. He's going to be a good quarterback. He's going to make plays with his legs. I question his accuracy down the field, which is going to lead to playing within 15 to 20 yards. They don't have the playmakers that Tennessee had last year. So I just find it hard for their offense to really pick up any steam from what they had last year. I do like the running back that they have. I think they're going to be able to run the ball. However, their offensive line was really bad. They do bring in 4 new transfers, so we will see if there is any ability to protect Nico. And then losing almost your entire starting lineup on defense is next to impossible to fix or get better. They're going to have 18 new starters this year, and their schedule sucks. Utah in week 1, it's at home, but it's Utah. They're going to be good. You're at UNLV, one of the best teams in the group of 6. You have Penn State in week 6, Indiana in week 9, by Nebraska, at Ohio State, Washington, at USC to finish the year. Sounds like hell. I just don't see this team making it to bowl eligibility. It's possible to get to 6. Unless Nico takes a step that we aren't going to see, or that we are not expecting to see on a worse team, I think 5 is your max here.
Yeah, I think I landed right at like 4 on this team. Could there be room for improvement? Yes. I think the best news for UCLA this year is that they're probably not the worst team in the Big Ten. I think I said last year that I predicted them as the worst team in the Big Ten, and they were definitely down there. They're down there again this year, but there is room for them to improve because of the people that they brought in, especially with Nico at the quarterback position, brings SEC play to the Big Ten. A lot different style football than he's probably used to, so that'll be interesting as well. You'll be seeing the same type of defenses, but as far as offense, UCLA typically is more spread heavy than run heavy in the SEC. So interesting to see. We'll see how well he can adapt, and don't expect much from this team.
Yeah, I'm not really too far in there as well. I haven't projected at 5.23 in the conference. First year was terrible for Foster. I mean, they barely beat Hawaii very early in the year. They lost 5 straight after that. They had a respectable, okay week game against Penn State, and then they kind of figured some things out. But they definitely overachieved against SP Plus projections by an average of about 10 points in their last 8 games, and then they won 4 of their last 6. So they finished the season with a intriguing team, but not a good team. I don't think none of it matters because he has almost a completely different team now this year, and the defense is pretty much responsible for a lot of that overachievement. But only 2 of the 15 players with 200 plus snaps come back, and then he added 15 transfers. The offense, like I said, they discovered a decent, efficient passing game, but then they lost a quarterback, and then most of the skill core after that. This entire drama story of bringing in Aguilar and then trading for Nico, that was just hilarious. So that was honestly probably one of the best stories of the summer or the spring this year. But new coordinator with Tino, I think it's Sunseri. Is that how you pronounce it? I think is what it is. I don't know. Nico's got the biggest question mark on his team because he still has his 5-star arm. He's got a good rushing ability. That's a decent start on offense. But I mean, your running back, who's coming from Cal, averaged about 6 yards per carry, and then you have Caden Robinson from App State, which is a stud at App State. If you didn't know, he was very, very, very talented in the Sun Belt Conference. But the line was very, very, very poor. It's experienced and it has 4 new transfers at least now, but it doesn't really feel as if there's like enough depth, in my opinion. But improvement over last year's 103rd in terms of SP ranking is likely, I think, in my opinion. But I do like how the defense problem solved their way into improvement last year, but I have no idea what to expect this year. That's the only problem. As Foster's, I think, is probably hoping that quantity produces quality with 10 new defensive back transfers. From a statistical standpoint, only the nickelback that they got from Louisville and then 2 corners from Indiana and Oregon State stand out. The front 6, they have really good size, but I don't think there's only one player who produced even 5 tackles for loss last year. And he's from Morgan State, and he's a linebacker. It's to me, this is like a second first year. So this is like 1B for Foster, in my opinion. I think they have about 18 new starters, and they're going to face 7 projected top 40 opponents. I just got to hope you have to hope for another year with the late season improvement, I guess. That's about the best that you can really look for. Their goal or their ceiling is going to have to be 6-6 because I just don't see them getting there. So due to some time constraint, we're going to basically record ACC breakdowns for tomorrow, and then we're going to have that uploaded by the end of the week this week, hopefully. We just didn't want to obviously have another 3-hour episode as much as I would love to sit here, but we have lives, so we're going to get to those. But we have conference championship matchups and winners for at least the conference that we did go over today, which is the Big Ten. So I'll let these guys talk about theirs, and then we'll kind of finish it off from there this week.
I'll go first. I have Penn State, and I have Michigan, like I said earlier. And I think it is the year of the Nittany Lions. I will be taking Penn State to win the Big Ten, and I'll go ahead and give a hint that Penn State will be my number 1 overall seed in my playoff bracket coming in 2 weeks.
I'll say you're not too far off, but I don't have Michigan in there. So I have a 12-0 Penn State versus a 10-2 Ohio State for the Big Ten championship. And I think the winner of this is solely going to depend on the regular season. I think if Ohio State loses at home to Penn State, I think they're going to beat them in Indianapolis. But if Penn State loses at the shoe, I think they're going to get them. They're going to win in Indianapolis. So I think this is highly dependent on what happens in the regular season. I definitely think these two teams are probably going to be in there as long as nothing crazy happens. Right now, I am leaning Penn State to win this game. That's hard for me to say. Like, I'm almost crying, but Ohio State's still in the playoff. Penn State will be in the playoff. It'll be fun.
I guess I'll kind of just do the same thing. I do have Penn State in mind, except the only difference is that I'm actually going to have to ride Washington just to be different. So I'll put Washington in there as my matchup over Penn State, but Penn State will take it, I think. In terms of conference play, I just think Washington's schedules favor them, so I do think their schedule will kind of give them benefit of the doubt and as they go into the Big Ten title. Hopefully, we'll see. If I'm right, then maybe we go viral. If not, then I guess I just don't know football. But for the sake of it blowing up, there's a possible chance, so why not? So I don't know. Call me Paul Feinbaum, I guess, of the Big Ten, so we'll take that chance any day. That's pretty much about it for this week. Said ACC will be recording for maybe by the end of the week, and it'll be uploaded by the end of the week. It's best I can say. So 2 episodes this week. It'd be kind of sick. We haven't done that yet. And hopefully get you guys in a preview on the Power 4 by the end of next week. That's pretty much the goal. Power 4 is obviously the biggest one, so we kind of want to go over everything there and then lightly sprinkle over some group of 5s. We're not going to do a complete deep dive and act like I'm a sharp talking about Sam Houston State this year, because I'm not. That'll be it for today. We will see you guys at some point, and then look forward for SEC and Big 12 next week. So peace, blessings, see y'all.